The humans' prisoner the battlefield was cold and silent under the twin moons. Captain Alex took a deep breath, his body aching from the long fight. His armor was scratched, his hands trembling, but his eyes were sharp. The war between humans and the alien race called Shirani had lasted for months. Tonight, he was alone, far from his team. Searching the ruins for survivors or threats, he moved slowly, his weapon ready. Suddenly, a strange sound caught his attention, a soft groan, almost like a whisper. Alex followed the sound behind a broken. While there, in the shadows, he found her, an alien warrior. Tall and beautiful in a fierce way, with silver blue skin and bright, glowing eyes. She wore battered armor, and her long black hair was matted with blood. Her leg was wounded, and she could not stand. She looked up at him with a mix of anger and fear. Alex pointed his weapon at her. She tried to lift her own weapon, but it slipped from her shaking hand. She was exhausted, defeated, but not broken. For a long moment, neither of them moved, only the wind howled around them. "Don't try anything," Alex said, his voice steady but tired. The alien warrior didn't answer. He saw her eyes narrow, studying his face, his uniform. The symbols of his world. He expected her to spit at him or curse him, but instead, she did something he never imagined. She dropped to her knees in the dust, her head bowed, her whole body trembling from cold and pain. Then, in clear, halting English, she said, "Don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed." Her voice was strong, but there was fear in it, too. Alex was shocked. He had heard stories that Shirani were proud, that they never begged for life. He stepped closer, unsure if this was a trick. Was she trying to distract him, waiting for him to lower his guard? Or was she truly desperate? For a moment, Alex considered calling for backup, but the signal here was weak. He looked at her, again her hands raised. Her wounds fresh, she was helpless, but she still had a warrior's pride in her eyes. "Who are you?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "My name is Zyra." Alex kept his weapon pointed at her. "Why did you say that?" he asked quietly. She lifted her head, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "In my world, when we are beaten, we offer warmth to our captors, to survive the cold, to hope for mercy." She whispered, "I am not begging for life. I am offering something only I can give." Alex didn't know what to say. His training told him to keep his distance, to treat her as the enemy. But he could see the frost on her breath, the way she shivered. Night was falling fast, and the temperature was dropping. If he left her here, she would die before sunrise. He looked at the heavy chains in his pack. Then at Zyra. Should he save her or end her life now, before she became a threat? Alex's mind raced. If he brought her in as a prisoner, his commanders might interrogate her or worse. If he let her go, she might warn her people. If he killed her, he'd be no different from the monsters the Shirani believed humans to be. He sighed, lowering his weapon. "Get up," he said. Zyra struggled to her feet, swaying. Alex carefully bound her wrists not too tight, but enough so she couldn't escape. He guided her away from the ruins, toward his makeshift camp nearby. She stumbled, nearly falling, but he caught her arm. "You can walk, right?" he asked. She nodded, but her face was pale. As they walked, Alex felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a possible threat at the camp. He forced Zyra to sit near the fire he had built from scraps. He kept his weapon close, eyes never leaving her. She sat in silence, arms wrapped around her knees. After a while, she shivered so hard her teeth chattered. Alex, against all orders and reason, took off his spare blanket and tossed it to her. She looked at it, surprised, then at him. "Thank you," she whispered. Alex didn't reply. He stared into the fire, wondering if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Zyra pulled the blanket around her shoulders. The night grew colder. but for the first time since the battle, Alex felt something strange. Not fear, but curiosity. Who was this alien who had offered warmth instead of hate? And what secrets did she carry beneath those guarded eyes? As the stars wheeled overhead and the cold wind howled outside, the human and his alien prisoner sat by the fire, watching each other, neither knowing what would happen when the sun rose again. The night grew darker, pressing in on Alex and Zyra as they sat near the weak, flickering fire. Alex was tired, but he couldn't let himself sleep. He kept one eye on Zyra, her wrists loosely tied in front of her, and the other on the shadows. Beyond their small camp, the alien wind whistled through the broken rocks, carrying strange sounds and the bitter cold. Zyra sat quietly, the blanket wrapped around her, her back straight despite the pain and exhaustion in her body. Alex's mind raced. Was he doing the right thing? Would his people understand why he spared her? He wanted to ask questions, to know more about this strange warrior. But every word felt dangerous. Instead, he handed her a canteen of water. She took it with slow, careful hands and drank. Never breaking eye contact, he tried to read her thoughts. In the firelight, but her face was a mystery, proud, wounded, and hard to trust. "Why did you come here?" Alex finally asked. Zyra took a moment before answering. "To fight for my people," she said softly, her voice low and steady. "But also to see if the stories were true." Alex frowned. "What stories?" Zyra looked up, her eyes bright in the darkness. "They say humans burn everything, that you show no mercy." She hesitated, then added, "But you gave me a blanket, and you did not kill me when you could." Alex felt the sting of her words. He wanted to defend his kind, but he knew there was some truth in what she said. Suddenly, a sharp howl echoed from the cliffs above them. Alex stood, gun raised, his heart thudding. Zyra tensed, her eyes darting to the shadows. "Is that one of your people?" Alex whispered. Zyra shook her head. "No, that is something else." The howl came again, closer this time. Alex circled the fire, searching the dark, his finger tight on the trigger. Zyra moved slowly, shifting so her back was against a large stone, ready to defend herself if needed. The fire crackled, fighting the cold. Alex felt sweat on his palms, the fear of the unknown all around. Minutes passed slow. Heavy minutes until the howling faded, leaving only the wind. Alex let out a shaky breath, lowering his weapon. Zyra watched him, a strange look on her face. "You are not afraid to die," she said quietly. Alex glanced at her. "Everyone's afraid, just some hide it better." Zyra smiled for the first time, a small, sad smile. "In my world, warriors must not show fear, even if they freeze at night," she said. Alex nodded, sitting down again. He pulled out a pack of dried food. Tearing it in half, he hesitated, then handed one piece to Zyra. She took it, sniffed it, and tasted it carefully. "It's not as bad as I expected," she said, surprising Alex. He almost laughed. For a while, they ate in silence. The cold pressed harder, and Zyra began to shiver again. Alex moved a little closer to the fire, but he noticed how her teeth were chattering. Without thinking, he shifted the blanket so it covered both of them at the edge. Zyra looked at him, surprised but grateful. "Is this how humans treat all prisoners?" she asked softly. "No," Alex replied, his voice rough. "Just the ones who don't give up." A strange peace settled over the camp. Alex could feel his eyelids growing heavy. He wanted to sleep, but he couldn't forget that Zyra was still an enemy, still. Something in her eyes made him trust her, just a little. The night dragged on, far away. Alex saw a distant flash, maybe lightning, maybe a signal. He tried his radio, but only static answered. They were alone, cut off from both armies. Zyra watched the stars above, her eyes shining. Do you have a family? Alex asked quietly. She nodded. 2 sisters, both younger, waiting for me to come home. She hesitated. If I don't return, they will think I died fighting bravely. Alex felt a pang of guilt, thinking of his own sister back on Earth, suddenly. Zyra leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper. My people? They will come, and they will not care if you helped me or not. Alex stiffened. They're coming for you. She nodded. For both of us. Now, Alex's heart pounded. He realized that the real danger wasn't just Zyra, was the world around them, the war that didn't care about kindness or enemies sitting together by a fire. Zyra touched his arm, just for a moment. Tonight, we are both alone. Human, she said. Alex didn't pull away. He looked into her eyes and saw fear, courage, and something like hope. He knew that, come morning, nothing would be the same. The uneasy peace of the night would end, and they would both have to choose sides or, maybe, just maybe, make a new one together, as the fire burned low and the cold deepened. 2 enemies shared warmth, secrets, and a small hope for something better than war. The night of uneasy peace was not over yet. The fire was nothing more than a pile of orange coals now. Alex sat with his knees drawn up, his rifle across his lap, his eyes flickering from the dark sky to the strange warrior at his side. The night was quiet, except for the wind and the soft breaths of Zyra. She had barely moved since their last words, staring into the embers like she could read the future in the flames. Alex shifted, restless, the cold making his muscles ache. He glanced at Zyra, watching the way her face changed in the light, sometimes strong, eyes sometimes tired, always unreadable. He wondered what she was thinking. He wanted to ask, but didn't know how. Enemies weren't supposed to share their hearts, especially in the middle of a war. Suddenly, Zyra spoke, her voice so soft it almost blended with the wind. Do you know why we call you monsters? Alex shook his head, not trusting his voice. Zyra's eyes flickered toward him, sharp and sad at once. We learned to fear you when we first saw your ships land on our soil. She whispered, to us, humans are like fireworm, but deadly. If not respected, Alex didn't know what to say. He thought of all the things he had seen in this war-ruined cities. Broken families, fear on every side. He wondered if they looked like monsters too. He poked at the coals with a stick, sparks dancing upward. Humans fear you as well, he said finally. They say the Shirani have no mercy, that you fight until there's nothing left. Zyra almost smiled, but it was gone in a moment. Maybe we both believe too many stories, she said. For a while, the only sound was the crackle of dying fire. Alex's mind drifted, thinking of home. He remembered how his sister used to tell scary stories by candlelight, how fear grew in the darkness. Now he was living one, with an alien warrior by his side. Zyra moved closer to the fire, her shivering growing worse. Alex saw her trying to hide it, but her pride was no shield against the cold. He shrugged off his jacket and tossed it to her. She caught it, surprised. You will freeze. She protested. I'll survive, Alex replied, trying to sound tough. Zyra pulled the jacket on, her fingers trembling. Then she whispered, my people are dying. Alex, he blinked, surprised to hear his name. She looked at him, tears bright in her alien eyes. This war was never meant to last this long, she said. Our world. It is old, and the land is tired. We need help, not more graves. Alex listened, something shifting in his chest. He thought of his own commanders, always talking about victory, never about peace. He wondered if anyone really cared about what was left behind after the fighting. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Zyra hesitated, then took a deep breath. My real mission was not just to fight, she said, her voice trembling. I was sent to capture a human alive to trade for medicine, food, anything to save our children. Alex stared. at her shock and anger mixing inside him. "So you were going to use me," he said. Zyra shook her head quickly. "I had orders, but I could not do it." She looked away, shame burning on her face, before Alex could answer. A soft crunch sounded from the darkness. Both jumped, Alex raising his weapon, Zyra tense beside him. Shadows moved just beyond the firelight. Alex's finger tightened on the trigger, but instead of an enemy, a small animal darted past, just a creature searching for scraps. They both let out a shaky breath. Zyra covered her face with her hands, her body shaking not from cold, but from fear and guilt. "I do not want to be your enemy," she whispered. Alex lowered his gun. He stared into the dying fire, feeling the weight of her words. He realized Zyra was more than a prisoner, she was a person. Scared and desperate, just like him. The stars above seemed brighter now. Alex wondered if somewhere out there, someone was wishing for peace too. He looked at Zyra, seeing her in a new way, not just as an alien, but as someone who had lost as much as he had. Suddenly, another sound came. From the edge of the camp, not an animal this time, but footsteps, soft, deliberate, dangerous. Alex and Zyra froze, eyes wide, hearts racing. Someone was watching them from the shadows. Zyra gripped Alex's arm, her nails digging in. "They've found us," she breathed. Alex glanced at his weapon, his mind racing. Was it her people? Or his? Either way, their fragile peace was about to shatter. The fire sputtered, shadows shifting. Alex and Zyra pressed close together. Back to back, facing the darkness, all secrets forgotten, now only survival mattered, as the footsteps drew nearer. Alex knew nothing would be the same after this night. He braced himself for the unknown, the fear, and the fight to come. Alex's hand tightened on his weapon as the footsteps circled their camp. The weak fire flickered, shadows dancing. Along the rocks, Zyra's breath was quick, her eyes searching the darkness for familiar shapes. The air felt thick with danger, and the cold seemed to bite deeper. For a moment, there was silence, then a voice called out in the alien language. Harsh and sharp, Zyra froze, understanding every word. Her people had found her. And they were angry. She looked at Alex, her face torn by fear and duty. "Don't move," she whispered, her hand resting on his arm. "If they see you, they will kill you first." The voice shouted again, this time closer. Zyra slowly stood up, her hands raised. Still wrapped in Alex's jacket, she stepped away from the fire, calling back in her own tongue. Alex couldn't understand the words, but he could hear the pain and pleading in her voice. His heart pounded as he watched shadows move beyond the stone's three tall shapes, armored and armed, slipping silently closer. Zyra's people aimed their weapons at her. They demanded to know why she was with a human. She tried to explain, her words desperate and fast, but the leader spat at her feet and shouted. One of the warriors grabbed her, wrenching her away from the fire. Alex tensed. Not knowing whether to run or fight, he could hear their words now full of anger, betrayal, and disappointment. The leader barked an order, pointing at Alex. Two of the aliens stalked toward him, their eyes glowing in the dim light. Alex's hand shook as he raised his weapon, but Zyra shouted again, putting herself between them. "Don't!" she cried in English. The aliens hesitated, unsure why Zyra would protect a human. Alex saw the confusion on their faces. He lowered his weapon slightly, trying to show he meant no harm. The leader growled, stepping forward with one swift motion. He struck Zyra across the face, knocking her to her knees. Alex's blood boiled, anger flashing in his eyes. Before he could react, the alien leader lifted his gun at Alex. Zyra sprang up, blocking the shot, her arms wide. "Stop!" she shouted. "He saved my life. He is not our enemy tonight." Her voice was raw with pain and loyalty, but the leader spat again, refusing to listen. He aimed at Alex's heart, finger on the trigger. Zira did not hesitate. She lunged forward, knocking the weapon aside as it fired a shot cracking into the rocks, sending sparks flying. The other aliens rushed to help, wrestling Zira down. Alex saw his chance and dashed behind a boulder, bullets sparking at his heels. He heard Zira's cries as her people pinned her down, calling her a traitor. His mind raced. Should he try to save her or run for his life? Every part of him screamed to help her, but he knew he was outnumbered and alone. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the ground. A flare from one of Alex's own patrols in the distance. Red light painted the sky, and the aliens looked up. Startled, Alex took a deep breath, then burst from his cover. Firing his weapon into the air to draw attention, Zira's captors turned just as Alex ran forward, grabbing a fallen branch from the fire and swinging it at them. Sparks flew, and for a split second, the aliens faltered. Zira twisted free and scrambled to Alex's side. They locked eyes, trust and fear and desperation in one silent glance. Alex threw his arm around her, pulling her away from the camp as shots rang out behind them. They stumbled into the darkness, dodging between rocks, breathless and wild with adrenaline. Behind them, Zira's people shouted in rage, but didn't give chase. They were afraid of the human flare, maybe thinking a full squad was coming. Alex and Zira ran until their legs gave out, collapsing behind a cluster of stones far from the dying fire. For a long moment, neither spoke. Zira's face was bruised, her lip bleeding. Alex's chest heaved with effort. His hands scraped raw from the rocks. In the silence, only the sound of their breathing and the distant echo of the flare remained. "I'm sorry, Zira," whispered, voice shaking. Alex shook his head. "You saved my life too," he said quietly. Zira looked at him, tears running down her face. "I had to choose between my people and you," she said, "and you chose me," Alex answered, his voice soft but full of wonder. For the first time, Zira let herself cry silent tears for the family she might never see again, for the trust that now bound her to a human. Alex put his hand on her shoulder, and they sat together. Two fugitives beneath an alien sky, betrayed by their own sides, but not alone. The flare faded, and the cold crept in again. Alex and Zira huddled close, knowing the night was far from over somewhere. Both armies searched for them, but now all they had was each other. Dawn crept over the rocky horizon, painting the sky with cold light. Alex shivered beneath the wide alien sky, feeling every bruise and ache in his body. Zira sat beside him, her head bowed, shoulders slumped under the weight of the nights. Betrayal around them, the land stretched wild and empty, scattered with blue-tinted plants and sharp stones. They had nothing left but each other and nowhere left to go. The fire was just a memory now. Alex pulled his knees up, rubbing his arms for warmth. He listened to Zira breathing, slow and steady, but he knew she was awake. He wanted to speak, but what could he say? They were enemies yesterday. Now they were outcasts, hunted by both sides. Finally, Zira broke the silence. "We must move," she said softly. "My people will search the old riverbed first. But this place will not be safe long." Alex nodded. Getting to his feet, he winced as pain shot through his ankle, but he forced himself to stand tall. Zira offered him her arm, and together they limped away from the rocks, deeper into alien territory. As they walked, Alex noticed things he hadn't before: markings carved into the stones, small nests of glowing insects, and strange flowers that opened and closed with the rising sun. It was beautiful in a way, but every shadow felt dangerous. Zira led them toward a thick grove of tall, dark plants, their broad leaves hiding them from view. They moved carefully, never speaking above a whisper. At last, they reached a small spring, hidden by vines. Zira knelt and drank, then motioned for Alex to do the same. The water tasted sweet, almost like honey. For a moment, the world seemed peaceful, but then Zyra's face grew serious. "Listen," she said, "if we are found, they will not show mercy, not to me. And never to you." Alex swallowed hard. "I know." He tried to smile, but his voice cracked. "I guess we're partners now." Zyra blinked, then nodded. "In my world, partnership is sacred," she said. "We offer warmth, not as weakness, but as trust." Alex thought of her words from the night before. He realized her promise to warm his bed had never been about surrender, was an act of hope, symbol among her people that meant alliance, not slavery, for the first time. Alex saw the world through her eyes. She was more than a warrior, she was a bridge between two worlds. He wondered what it would mean to truly trust someone so different. Zyra handed him a small stone from her pouch. It was smooth and warm, marked with swirling patterns. "In my culture, we give this to those we would trust with our life," she said quietly. Alex closed his hand around the stone, feeling its warmth spread through his fingers. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked the air, a distant shout in the alien language. Zyra's eyes widened. "They are searching nearby," she whispered. She motioned for Alex to follow her deeper into the tangled grove. They moved quickly, ducking under hanging vines and stepping carefully over roots. They stopped in a narrow clearing. Breathless, Alex's heart pounded as voices echoed through the brush. Zyra pressed close, listening. Alex caught words he didn't understand, but he heard the anger and urgency in them. Zyra looked at him, fear in her eyes. "If they catch us, pretend you are my captive," she said quickly. Alex nodded, trusting her. As the voices grew louder, Zyra grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. Her grip was strong but gentle. She pushed him to his knees, standing over him as if she had just captured him herself. The search party burst into the clearing, 3 alien warriors, their weapons drawn. They stopped, shocked to see Zyra. One barked a question, and Zyra answered swiftly, her voice fierce. She explained that she had tracked the human alone. Away from the camp, she claimed Alex was her prize. Proof of her loyalty, the warriors circled. Inspecting Alex with cold eyes, one of them spat at the ground, muttering a curse. Zyra stood tall, never showing fear. After a tense moment, the leader nodded. He motioned for Zyra and Alex to follow. Zyra helped Alex to his feet, whispering, "Stay close and do not speak unless I tell you." They joined the group, walking in silence through the alien woods. Alex could feel every eye watching him, waiting for him to stumble or break. They reached a camp, hidden deep in the trees. Strange tents and glowing lights filled the clearing. Alien children stared at Alex with wide, fearful eyes. Older warriors pointed and whispered. Alex felt exposed and alone, but Zyra stayed close, her presence steady inside the main tent. The leader spoke quietly to Zyra. She argued back, her voice strong. Alex couldn't understand the words, but he knew she was fighting for both of them. Finally, the leader turned away, leaving them alone. Zyra let out a long breath, her shoulders relaxing. "For now, we are safe," she whispered. "But you must act the part of prisoner until I say otherwise." Alex nodded, trusting her completely, for the first time since the war began. He felt hope thin as sunlight through the trees. Here, among aliens, trust had become their only shield. The first light of dawn pushed through the alien trees. In the hidden camp, Alex barely slept, lying on a thin mat beside Zyra. He listened to strange birds calling, the crackle of fire, and the uneasy silence between warriors who did not trust him. Every few minutes, a young alien would sneak a look at him, some with fear, others with curiosity. Alex knew he was the only human ever to see this place, and maybe the only one who would ever leave it alive. Zyra moved quietly around the camp, speaking in her language with the elders. Her face was calm, but Alex saw the worry in her eyes whenever she glanced his way. He could feel the tension building, like the moment before a storm. The warriors argued in low voices, sometimes shouting. Alex understood nothing, but the words were sharp, heavy. With anger, soon, Zira returned to his side. "They want to turn you in to the army," she said. Her voice soft but urgent. "They think you are too dangerous. And they are afraid their children will suffer if you stay." Alex's heart sank. He gripped the trust stone Zira had given him, feeling its warmth in his fist. "What about you?" he asked. Zira met his eyes, her face full of pain. "I will go with you, no matter what," she whispered. "But if we are separated, you must run, never look back." Alex nodded, but his hands shook. Just then, the camp exploded in chaos alien. Soldiers in battle armor appeared from the forest. They shouted orders, weapons raised. The elders argued, trying to hold them back, but the soldiers pushed forward. Zira grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him behind a tent. The leader of the soldiers, a tall female with scars across her face, demanded to know why the human was there. She accused Zira of betrayal, calling her weak. Zira stepped forward, standing between Alex and the guns. "I brought him here as a prisoner," she declared. "But he is not our enemy. He saved my life." The soldiers laughed, but the leader raised her weapon. "Traitors die with their pets," she spat. She ordered her soldiers to take Alex and Zira away. The crowd closed in, shouting. Alex felt panic, trapped by angry faces and sharp weapons. Suddenly, a new voice rang out, a deep, strong voice that silenced the crowd. An old alien elder stepped forward, her silver hair glowing in the morning light. She looked at Zira and Alex, then at the soldiers. "We have lost enough children to hate," she said. "Let us judge them by their actions, not their skin or blood." The soldiers hesitated, unsure. The elder knelt by Alex, her eyes kind. "Is it true?" she asked softly. Alex nodded. "Zira saved my life, and I saved hers." The old woman stood, turning to the leader. "We will not kill them here," she said. But the leader would not back down. She shouted orders, and soldiers began to push Alex and Zira toward the center of camp. Zira whispered quickly, "When I say, run, go east, toward the river." Alex nodded, heart pounding. The soldiers forced them to kneel. The leader aimed her weapon at Alex. The old elder stepped in front, holding up her hands. "For every life lost, we plant a seed of peace or a tree of sorrow," she said, her voice trembling. "If you kill them, you will kill hope." The leader hesitated, gun shaking, for a long moment. No one moved. Then, in a flash, Zira lunged at the leader, knocking her gun away. "Now!" Zira shouted. Alex sprang up and ran, dodging through the crowd. Zira followed, her body a shield against flying bullets and angry shouts. Together, they darted between tents, past frightened children and shouting warriors. The river glimmered in the distance, promising escape. Suddenly, Zira was hit. She stumbled but kept running. Alex grabbed her arm, pulling her along. They reached the edge of the river as the soldiers caught up. Weapons raised. Alex turned, shielding Zira with his body. "We surrender," he yelled, his voice raw, but the old elder stepped between them and the guns. She raised her hand, and the soldiers stopped. "Enough," she said firmly. "These two risked everything for each other. Let them go, let them show us there is another way." For a moment, time froze. Alex felt the cold water at his feet. Zira, leaning against him, blood on her side. The soldiers lowered their guns, unsure. Finally, the leader turned away. Signaling her squad to stand down, Alex and Zira waded into the river. The cold washing over them. On the far bank, they paused, looking back at the camp, the place where enemies became something more. The sun rose higher, lighting their path. Forward, they were wounded, hunted, but alive, and together. They had made a last stand not with guns, but with courage and trust. The morning sun painted the world gold as Alex and Zyra followed the river's edge. Their bodies were battered, their clothes torn, but their spirits refused to break. Each step took them farther from the violence of the camp and closer to something new. Zyra leaned on Alex as they moved, her wound aching but her eyes full of fierce determination. They walked in silence for a long time, the only sound the river and the soft calls of distant birds. Alex's mind spun with memories fighting. Running, surviving, he looked at Zyra and knew he would never see her as just an enemy again. He was not sure where they would go, or if peace could really exist between their people. But he felt hope, small but real, growing with every step. At midday, they reached a bend in the river where the land was gentle. There, hidden beneath a tall tree, they found a place to rest. Alex made a small fire with dry twigs, careful to hide the smoke. Zyra sat beside him, her eyes watching the water drift by. "Do you think they will follow us?" Alex asked quietly. Zyra shook her head. "Not now," she replied. "My people saw what we did. They saw that we were not just enemies. Some may still want revenge, but others will start to wonder if there is another way." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of his trust stone in his pocket. He pulled it out, turning it over in his hands. Zyra smiled softly. "In my world, that stone is a promise," she said. "It means we belong to each other's future, no matter what happens. I will not forget you." For a moment, Alex could not speak. He felt something new rising inside, a hope that maybe, somehow, two worlds could heal. They sat together, listening to the river and the wind. The silence was full of meaning, not fear. Later, as the sun began to fall, Alex noticed movement on the other side of the water. A group of figures stood there, Relians and humans together, weapons lowered, faces cautious but curious. Alex and Zyra stood, hands raised in peace. For a tense moment, no one spoke. Then, from the human side, a soldier Alex recognized stepped forward. He lowered his gun, eyes wide in disbelief. "Captain?" the soldier called. Alex nodded. "We're not enemies anymore," he said, voice strong but gentle. Zyra stood beside him, tall and proud. She spoke in her own language, her words reaching the aliens who stood behind the humans. Slowly, others emerged, young, old, warriors and families. They did not rush to fight, but to listen. Someone crossed the river. A human medic with a red cross on his arm. He bandaged Zyra's wounds, sharing food and water. Aliens watched, then offered strange fruits and healing herbs in return. For the first time since the war began, people from both sides sat together in the same clearing. There were no angry words, only quiet voices and tired smiles. The old elder from the alien camp appeared, walking slowly with the help of two children. She greeted Alex and Zyra. Her eyes warm. "This is how it begins," she said softly. "Not with gunfire, but with small acts of courage. You have shown us that fear can become trust. Let us try to build something better." Alex felt tears in his eyes. He squeezed Zyra's hand, and she did not let go. Around them, others began to talk and share stories. For the first time, laughter rose in the alien woods, soft and hopeful. As night fell, a new fire burned at the edge of the river. Humans and aliens sat side by side, passing food, trading stories. Children played beneath the trees, their laughter carrying into the starry sky. Zyra leaned her head on Alex's shoulder, tired but happy. "What now?" Alex asked quietly. Zyra smiled. "Now, we begin again," she whispered. "Not as enemies, but as friends. Maybe someday, even as family." The stars shone bright above them, a symbol of endless possibilities and second chances. Alex looked up and made a silent promise to the night. He would fight for peace, for trust, for a new world where fear could never win. Beside him, Zyra closed her eyes, her heart finally at rest. The war was not over, but a new alliance had begun. And as the firelight danced on their faces, they knew their story would change the world forever.